New EV sales fell 28% in the first quarter of 2026, and some of the cars sitting hardest on dealer lots aren't obscure ones nobody's heard of. They're mainstream models from Audi and Porsche, brands with decades of trust and engineering reputation behind them that ordinarily don't struggle to move inventory off a lot. Even Tesla is sitting on a record 50,000 unsold units right now, and that's the company everyone in the entire industry assumes has this whole problem figured out better than anyone else on the planet. The federal tax credit that used to make these cars genuinely affordable disappeared in October of 2025, and a lot of the industry simply hasn't caught up to what that actually means for real demand at the dealership counter. Here are 5 electric cars nobody's actually buying in 2026, ranked from bad to genuinely alarming, with the real story behind each one and the specific numbers that prove it. Number 5. The Audi Q6 e-tron. Sales collapsed 90% in the first quarter of 2026, down to just 309 units nationwide, a fall steep enough that it's hard to explain away as normal seasonal softness or a slow month for one region. This was supposed to be one of Audi's flagship electric SUVs, positioned to compete directly with Tesla's Model Y and BMW's iX, backed by a fresh platform and a genuinely competitive spec sheet on paper. Instead, Audi's response says everything about how seriously they're taking the problem internally, and industry watchers have taken notice of just how unusual this kind of admission actually is for a brand this size. Rather than pushing through the slump with deeper discounts and aggressive lease deals, they're skipping the 2026 model year entirely and bringing the Q6 back fresh in 2027, essentially admitting this generation needs a genuine reset rather than a fire sale to clear the lots. For buyers, that means used and leftover Q6 e-trons are sitting on dealer lots right now, with real pressure to move them before an even newer version arrives and makes the current inventory look outdated overnight, which is exactly the kind of situation that usually produces the steepest discounts of the entire model's run, worth watching closely if you're patient enough to wait for the right deal. Number 4. The Porsche Taycan. Even Porsche has publicly acknowledged this one is struggling, which is genuinely rare for a brand that usually protects its image far too carefully to admit something like that out loud in public. Roughly 229 days of supply sit on dealer lots right now, with fewer than 400 units sold in a recent 45-day stretch and close to 2,000 sitting unsold nationwide, a genuinely large number for a car with Porsche's brand power behind it. Part of the problem is simple positioning within Porsche's own lineup. The Taycan competes directly against Porsche's gas-powered model, and plenty of loyal Porsche buyers are choosing the traditional 911 or Cayenne over the electric sedan instead, even with fuel prices sitting where they are right now. There's also the practical reality that a Taycan starts north of $100,000 before any options get added on, and at that price point, buyers genuinely have plenty of other options, including Porsche's own showroom, competing for the exact same money and the exact same customer. When the brand itself admits the problem publicly instead of quietly discounting behind the scenes, that signals something bigger than one rough order. It points to a genuine shift in what buyers in this price range actually want right now, and possibly a signal that the Taycan needs a real rethink before its next generation shows up, similar to what Audi already decided to do with the Q6. If you're finding this useful, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel keep making videos like this. We're only halfway through the list, and the numbers actually get more extreme from here, not less. Number 3. The Audi Q4 e-tron. A 271-day supply with only 533 units sold in 45 days would already be bad enough on its own, but the first quarter of 2026 made it noticeably worse. Sales fell 93% year over year to just 90 units nationwide. This was supposed to be Audi's affordable entry point into electric ownership, the car meant to bring people into the brand who couldn't quite justify the bigger, pricier models like the Q6 or the e-tron GT. Instead, almost nobody's buying it, which leaves a real gap in Audi's electric lineup at exactly the price point that was supposed to matter the most for growing the brand's EV sales overall. Part of the issue is that competitors in this same price bracket, from Hyundai to Tesla to even Kia, are simply offering more range or a lower starting price for roughly the same money, which makes the Q4's Audi badge alone not enough to close the gap anymore, especially once the federal credit that used to help bridge that exact price difference disappeared entirely from the equation for every single buyer shopping in this segment. Number 2, the Audi Q4 e-tron Sportback. Its own sibling's numbers actually look almost healthy by comparison next to this one. Sales here dropped 99% year over year, from 513 units the previous year, down to almost nothing worth counting as a meaningful sales figure at all. A near total collapse for a single model in 12 months, the kind of drop that usually signals a manufacturer is quietly preparing to either discontinue a nameplate entirely or rethink it from scratch before ever building another one. For a slightly sportier, slightly pricier version of an already struggling sibling, this kind of drop suggests buyers weren't just rejecting the styling choices, they were rejecting the entire price tier the car occupied, since paying more for a sleeker roofline on a car that was already struggling to sell at its base price clearly wasn't the incentive Audi was hoping it would be. It's a genuinely rare thing to see a single model sales fall this close to zero in just 12 months without the manufacturer publicly announcing an official end date for it soon after. Number 1, the Polestar 4. This is the most extreme number on the entire list, and it isn't particularly close to anything else we've covered so far. Market day supply sits at 1,468 days, meaning at the current sales pace, it would take dealers roughly 4 years to clear out the inventory sitting on lot right now, longer than most people even keep the car they currently own before trading it in. Only 16 units sold in the last month and a half across the entire country, a number so small it barely registers as a sales figure at all for a brand attempting a real launch for a brand new vehicle that only started deliveries in December of 2025, barely months before this data was even collected. That's about as slow and discouraging a start as any new car launch can possibly have. Polestar is a small, relatively young brand without decades of other successful models to fall back on, while it figures out what went wrong, unlike Audi or Porsche, who can absorb a struggling model within a much larger, more established lineup. That makes a number this extreme genuinely dangerous for the company's future, rather than just embarrassing for a single model launch, since a single failed launch carries far more weight for a brand this size than it would for a manufacturer selling millions of cars across dozens of other established models worldwide. Add all 5 of these together, and a pattern shows up fast. It isn't that Americans stopped wanting electric cars entirely, since Tesla and Hyundai's Ioniq 5 are still selling reasonably well, even in this same, genuinely tougher market, proving there's still real demand out there for the right car at the right price and the right features. It's that a huge stretch of the premium EV market, particularly from Audi, Porsche, and newer luxury brands like Polestar, priced itself, assuming the federal tax credit would always be there to soften the sticker shock for buyers sitting on the fence. Once that credit actually disappeared in October of 2025, a lot of those same models turned out to be priced for a buyer who's simply no longer showing up at the dealership. And dealers are now stuck holding cars they ordered based on demand that existed under completely different financial conditions just months earlier. Clearing that backlog is going to take aggressive discounts, real patience, or probably both, and it's likely to keep shaping the used EV market for buyers willing to wait for a genuinely good deal over the next year or two, especially on models that already have a publicly announced reset coming. Which of these 5 surprised you the most out of everything covered here today? Drop it in the comments and subscribe for more breakdowns like this one before your next car buying decision.